have in here. I do consider myself an old dog. Teaching for a while. Have any new dogs? In between dogs? Puppies? Not yet started yet. Mike Tully asked me to come down from upstate, and I haven't been down here in a while, but he asked me to come down and present something, whatever. And I said, well, what are you interested in? He goes, you know what, people always like to leave a conference and just have ideas, activities that they can immediately use in the classroom. I'm like, perfect, I'll put some things together. So what I was thinking is, you know, some of this stuff might be stuff that you've seen before, it's circulated from conferences, but it's still good. Kids still love it. Sometimes we put a new twist on things, and I'll show you some things that I put a new twist on to kind of make it a little bit more authentic for our kids this day and age. Some things are new. In my district, we teach, this is pretty much our Bible. How many of you are familiar with this? Okay, this is the guidance document for health education. There is a workshop, I think, going on now, and I think the next section that is the guidance document for dummies. Several years ago, New York State kind of went towards skills-based health education, and this is the document that's used to create learning experiences that get into all that, and I'll talk about that a little bit more, but this is what we use. So if you are not familiar with it, there is a workshop today that you can get a little bit more familiar with it. So I have a bunch of things to kind of share with you. What I realized is I have too many things in the time period for us to kind of practice some of the activities. There's too much, so I'm just going to kind of like give it all to you, and you can take it back and look it over and figure out what works in your classroom with your students. I tried to come up with some things from different levels. I actually teach 5th grade substance abuse prevention. I teach a 9th grade health class, and I teach a high school 11th and 12th grade class. I used to teach at the middle school level. We have 6th and 8th grade health in my district. We have a K-5 curriculum that we actually developed. So we're K-5, 6, 8, 9th grade, and then 11th and 12th. So we're hitting them hard at Niskayuna, which is good. Just a little intro on me. I received both my bachelor's and my master's from SUNY Cortland. I was driving down here last night because all of my friends from Portland were from Long Island. I was thinking about some of my buddies, and my roommate from college is sitting right over there. I haven't seen her since I left Portland, so that's great. I've been teaching for 20 years. It's hard to even get that out of my mouth because it does not. It just went, and it's such a flash. It's incredible. I currently teach in Niskayuna, which is a suburban high school, or suburban school district, I should say, right outside the Schenectady-Albany area. I have experience teaching at the graduate level. I taught a health education methods class for a couple of years at Sage in Troy. I became the Capital Zone Health Rep. I was that for 2 years. I showed up at a meeting one night and they said, guess what, we made you secretary. And I was like, yeah, little did I know it was an awful, awful position because I had to take notes and that was awful, I had to pay attention. And then they asked me to be the Capital Zone president. So I was president-elect for 2 years, and this is going into my 2nd year as Capital Zone president. And my claim to fame is that I'm apparently the first health educator to be a zone president. Most zone presidents are physical educators, higher education, so I'm the first solely health educator to be a zone president. So that's awesome for health education. So just kind of going back to types of things that are happening with our kids in our school district. And learner-centered, I try to do very little lecturing. I try to have students as the center of their own learning day to day. A lot of times they're doing a lot of peer teaching. You and I know that you learn best when you can kind of teach to other people, so we try to do that as much as possible with our students. So again, if you're not really familiar with the guidance document, I would definitely try to hit that workshop that's going on next. So I got this great activity from our president-elect of New York State AFERD, Mara Manson, who is videotaping me right now. Over the summer, we had an executive council meeting up at Minnow Brook, which is Blue Mountain Lake, awesome place. And Mara was in charge of the social activities for the evening. So one of her activities on the second night was she had a box, and she had a bunch of items in the box. And we divided our group into 4 teams, and we had to basically our mission was to remember as many items in the box as we possibly could. And then we had to go back to our team, we had to write down all the items, and the team that had the most items correct, and we had to be very thorough with the items, very exact with the items, but the team that had the most items correct won a prize. So I said, that was a great idea. It was a great icebreaker for our group. People got into it. People were really challenged by it. People came up with great ideas as to how to remember. We had quadrants of the box. I was in charge of the right upper quadrant of the box. We did all this great, cool stuff. So I had the idea when I went back to work in the fall of coming up with a box that has all positive health items in it. So there's things like a water bottle, a sneaker, a tennis ball, golf ball, different things like that. I'll pass around my box. And so I did the same activity with the kids as kind of an icebreaker. The neat thing was, as the kids kind of did the whole activity, we finished it all up, I said, what was the common thing with all of the items in the box? And the kids kind of put together, they're all items that, improve our health, make us feel better, make us physically healthier, mentally healthier, whatever the case may be. And then I said, how does this class match a lot of the items in the box? And they kind of said the same thing. Well, this class would help us to feel better, make us mentally healthier, physically healthier, that sort of thing. So they made a nice little connection between the items in the box, but they also had a chance to work together for the first time. It was a great communication activity because they had to figure out how they were going to remember the items in the box, how they were going to communicate to that to each other without doing a lot of communication. They only had about 10 seconds to be able to look at the items, and then they had to go back to their section of the classroom and figure things out. So it was a great icebreaker. It was a great idea that Mara came up with, and I made it our own for health. So I'm going to pass around my box for you. And there's a bunch of items. And you can really make that anything. You can make it all physical activity items. You can make it drug-related items, sex-related items, depending on your age group, whatever you want to do. Okay, I do have a handout that I'm going to pass around. If you are from the same district, if you could just take one handout, maybe take it back and make copies, or if we're totally running out of handouts, I can always make a copy for you and send it down. I don't have a problem with that. But when you get your handout, it has a lot of the activities that I'm going to talk about today, but there are some activities that I just added in, like the box activity that's not in here. So if you are from the same district, maybe just a show of hands, just so we know to give you one.
Only 20-something in here and about 30-something people.
Yeah. So I can always make another. While the handouts are going around, this is another activity. I have an adaptive health education class. Does anybody have an adaptive health class in their district? My adaptive health class is just like an adaptive PE class. These are students who would not be able to, make it in a regular ed health class. They're very limited, but they still need health education. A lot of our middle school students do not get health education if they're in a special ed program, because they're typically going to resource, or they're in a contained room, and the teachers are kind of saying, well, we're doing a lot of life skills. It's health. It's not really health. So we don't a lot of times get those kids until they're high schoolers and they've had probably no health education. So I do a special ed, an adaptive health education program. I've done it for a couple years. One of the first things that I do with my class is we talk about the health triangle. And I have my kids do a little health triangle. You can definitely do this with elementary school. You could definitely do this with middle school. And I bet you my high schoolers would probably like to do it too, because they like to do stuff like color and that sort of thing. What I did is I had them create a triangle. I took everybody's picture. This was actually mine, so I just took a picture of the class because I didn't really want to exclude anybody. And then I had them come up with 3 characteristics that were physically healthy, mentally healthy, and socially healthy. And we just kind of dangled it from our pyramid on our correct sides. Their picture went on top. And then we hung them from the ceiling. And it was awesome because when you went in the room, there's all these mobiles all over the ceiling. And it was great until our fire marshal came and said that we had to take them all down because ceiling is a fire hazard. Who knew? But it's very easy to do. Do you guys know how to create the triangle? Really simple. Take a nice little piece of construction paper. I did this for my other one. Chop this off probably about 2 inches. Then you fold it into a triangle. Open it up. Fold it again. So now you have 4 little triangles. You cut in half. And then fold over and have your little triangle. Okay. And we're all familiar with the health triangle, physical, mental, social health. So it just was kind of a neat fit. And then they just took this part and they made squares hanging down, or some of the kids made triangles hanging down. With an adaptive class, it was great because they got to see the triangle and they got to think about things that were physically, mentally, socially healthy for them. It was a great project. They loved it. They loved seeing their picture up. The fortunate thing was that for back to school night, we did have all of our mobiles hanging all over the ceiling, so our parents got to see them, and they were really proud of their kids. And it was a great project, so they really enjoyed it. Also, with my adaptive class, my kids are so limited that they would not be able to take tests. They don't remember a lot from day to day, some basic stuff. And I have to do everything really, really hands-on with them. Some of them really have limitations in a lot of different ways, verbal limitations, physical limitations, and so on. But one of the things that they really do enjoy doing is getting up and moving around. They love their adaptive PE class. I go into their adaptive PE class a lot and run around with them and have a great time with them. But they love to be really active. So as we were finishing up our first unit, I wanted to make sure that I was assessing what they learned. I can't do it in a test. They're not comfortable like a one-on-one assessment. But I thought what they would really enjoy is a game. So I came up, and some of you probably have done this before. I actually came up with it, and I made a big game board. I went up to their room about 20 minutes before class started. I had a start area, and I have about 50 cards that I went all around the room, all around the floor. So when they came in, they were like, what's this crazy lady doing with us today? They were the game piece. So what I did is I had some dice. They rolled the dice. Whatever it landed on, they went to that space on the floor. And they actually physically moved themselves. I had a little girl, I think she has spina bifida, she's on crutches. I said, do you want to pull up a chair next to your space that you're at and sit? Nope, I want to stand. She was really into it. So we were doing healthy habits, hygiene, infection control. So I had things like, you should do this at least 2 times per day to avoid cavities. Switch places with Tim. I made it kind of like authentic to their class. So if Tim was ahead, they had to switch places, which they loved but didn't. You forgot deodorant, move back 1 space. So they had to move back. I had you haven't washed your hair, move back 2 spaces. So they could kind of tell like good and bad hygiene types of things. This was a challenge one. Microbe is another word. We went to a kids' health movie on the internet. They have a cool immune system movie, and so they learned what a microbe was. They get free spaces. I had miss a turn and go wash your hands. So we have a sink in the classroom, so they had to go over. And I told them to sing happy birthday when they wash their hands. So it drives the teacher nuts because they're all fanatical right now about washing their hands. And he's like, and of course they're over there singing happy birthday as loud as they can. I had just all sorts of like really fun, again, like what song should you sing. So basic, easy. 50 of these cards all over the floor. Miss a turn, skip a turn, trade places with, just fun stuff. And probably if you went into my class, the girl that you would most want to win the game, who never wins any games, won. Oh my God, she was like, can I call my mom? She was like so excited. It was awesome. And then a little finish line, you can have a little prize. I made sure everybody finished the game though, and I didn't really, I wasn't so concerned with the places that they came in, but that girl was really excited about being first. You could definitely do this with any grade level. High school kids would even love it if they had teams and you actually made game pieces that they could physically move around the floor. Somebody in my last session said that she does it on her smart board, and they move pieces around the room. Just fun stuff, a great way to assess. Like I said, I don't give tests or quizzes or anything like that, but they can work together. They did have, they could phone a friend if they weren't sure of the answer, and their main classroom teacher was on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. So they all know the show, and the phone a friend was really kind of cool for them. And I had my cell phone, and I have an iPhone, which they're always intrigued with. So that was their phone a friend. They could actually hold my phone and pretend to phone a friend.
Do each of those squares have something on them, or some just numbers?
Some just have a number. Some just had if it was it might have been a free space. But it was a free space, but if a certain kid landed on it, like I said, I really catered the game to that particular group of kids. So if a certain kid landed on that free space, he got to move ahead 4 spaces. That was his very own free space, so it was kind of cool like that, and they really enjoyed that. I had one you smell, move back 2 spaces, just funny. They ate it right up. It's a lot of fun. Okay, so do we all have a packet? Okay. If you can turn to page 1, I have a little table of contents and everything for you. One of the first things that we do in our health class is we just kind of talk about the basic components of health, the dimensions of health: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, intellectual, social. It can be very dry. The kids are yeah, whatever. But it's obviously the foundation of our class. We want kids to understand that there's more to health than just being physically or mentally healthy. So we were kind of debating and kind of talking about this, and the other piece that we're trying to do as well is get to know our kids and have our kids get to know each other, because a lot of our kids are 11th and 12th graders. They're all pooled together. Some kids don't know one another. They may know just a couple kids in the class. So we really try to get our kids very bonded together in those first few weeks. So this is an activity where it's a individual project where they choose something that they're really passionate about. It can be an activity, a hobby, whatever, that they really, they live and breathe this. And they have to kind of think about it in terms of the 5 dimensions of health and how it connects to all 5 dimensions. And then we ask them to create a PowerPoint or even a poster or something like that, if they can't do a PowerPoint, to put it all together. It's awesome because it gives the kids a chance to tell us about themselves, tell each other about something that they really enjoy doing, the history of when they started doing it. Some of our kids have started activities when they were 2 and 3 years old, so it's really a part of their life. And then they have to connect it, and they have to think about, how does dance spiritually, how is that connected spiritually to me? And then they really think about spiritual health, and they make those connections. It's awesome. We've had kids that have we tell them, we would love you to perform. We'd love to see whatever you do in action. So some kids have actually performed musical instrument, singing, dance, played piano, rolling down the piano to my classroom. Some kids just have video clips. This is when I scored a goal, big soccer game or whatever. They show us those things, and that's awesome. High school kids love it. Middle school kids would love it. Elementary kids would love it. But it's just a great way for them to really think about the 5 dimensions of health. So that's kind of an introductory activity that we do with our kids. The next activity is probably an oldie but a goodie. It gets kids thinking about stress. It would be suitable for all age groups. And I would do this with us if we had a bigger room and maybe less people. But I start off, everybody stand up, you have to start not right now, but have everybody stand in a circle. I throw the ball to somebody, say their name, throw the ball to them, they catch the ball, and then they have to pick a different person to throw the ball to, and everybody throws the ball to a different person until it gets to the very last person who hasn't had the ball, and then they throw it back to me. We go around again, and they're all like, okay, what is she doing today with us? This is kind of weird. But we do this little fun ball activity. So they're throwing, they kind of now know the pattern of how it's going around the room. I then introduce another one, throw it around. I introduce another one, throwing it around. Now that we've got 3 objects. Another object. throw it around. Now they're starting to get a little silly, a little crazy, that the noise level in the room is going up. Another object, my glob of fat, I think I throw around. This thing I throw around. Until we've got lots of things flying around the room. Noise level is way up. Kids are freaking out. They're dropping things. Some kids are kicking things underneath the desk because they don't want to have all these things going around. I've had some kids that are just like, I'm sitting down. I can't take it anymore. I can't focus, and it's crazy. And then slowly, and they don't even pay attention that I'm doing this, I start to take the objects out, and they, the noise level starts to calm down. And then they start to realize, she's taking the objects out, until we're back to our original ball. Now we've just had objects being, tossed around, people dropping them, they're under desks, they're high, they're all over the place. But now we're back to the original one, and it's nice and fluid, and nobody's dropping it at all. And we go around, and now nobody even has to say a name. We know where it's going, everything's perfect. I get the ball back, I have them sit down, and I say, how is this activity like stress? So then they start to kind of think about it a little bit, and if you look on page 3, some of their answers, and obviously the higher level students kind of think about this a little bit more. A few things are easy, many things get confusing, just like stress. We can deal with a few things, more and more things on our plate gets very confusing. It's frustrating when too much is going on. People handle the activity differently. Some people really enjoy it and thrive on it. Some people sat down, can't deal with it, it's too much for them. Okay, or they get really frustrated, or they start chucking the ball because they get annoyed with everybody. Like the object, stress comes in different shapes and sizes. Some things are easy to catch. Those discs are very hard to catch. The rubber chickens are hard to catch. The fat glob really hurts if you get pegged in the head with it. So they understand that some things are easy to deal with, some things are more difficult. Stress causes your body to have to react more quickly, just like the activity. Like stress, when there's too much going on, your focus narrows. The kids start to realize that I'm only focused on the person I'm throwing the ball to and the person that's throwing the ball to me. I can't even really pay attention to the whole game that's going on because there's way too much. And like stress, when there's an opportunity to kick something under the desk, we'll take that opportunity, which a lot of kids do, and they'll, I'll do that science project at another time. I've got way too much on my plate. So then we start to get into our whole stress management skill. It's a great way to open that up, just a way to get the kids up, moving around, active. They love the activity. Okay, next activity that I have, if you can actually turn to page 8 and 9. This activity, if you're an old dog, you've seen this activity probably for a long time. I've had this for probably 12, 13 plus years. The original activity was like Pat, Chris, Terry. They were kind of like ambiguous names. So when you first start reading it, you're not sure if they're boys or girls or if they're a couple. It really had nothing to do with the story, so I was like, I'm going to change their names. So I ended up changing their names. And I would encourage you, think about some of the more popular common names that are in your district. If you're from like a more diverse school, and I actually have started to do this a little bit more. We have a larger Indian population coming into our district. So I'm using names like Ahmed, Anjali, just things like that because they connect more with that. But I changed my names, and this year I actually said to my staff, we really need to kind of change and update this activity because the kids were saying, well, why didn't they text each other over the summer? Why didn't they email? And it's like, we have to move